Hello, guten Tag and 𝗘𝗫𝗧𝗏. That's Gaelic Adam Clery from FourFourTwo here, and this is your Scotland tactical preview for the European Championships. That's right, in qualifying they stunned Spain, they knocked out Norway, they now find themselves in the opening night showpiece event against host Germany, and yet the 𝗘𝗫𝗧𝗥𝗧𝗏 gives them a less than 1% chance of actually winning the tournament. But you've come to the right channel, my wee pals, because we're going to show you today why the 𝗘𝗫𝗧𝗥𝗧𝗏 can suck. Actually, before we start, very aware of the big tartan elephant in the muck room here. You may be sitting there as a Scottish person going, am I really going to listen to someone from England tell me about my football team? Do you even watch us, bro? Well, in what is sort of like the genetic equivalent of getting your medals on the table, this is my father. And thus, if you think I grew up with anything other than just a constant voice in the back of my head telling me that I'm supposed to support Scotland as well, then I don't know what to tell you. Also, hi, Dad. Anyway, yes, so qualifications established. This will almost certainly be the Scotland team that starts against Germany and, injuries permitting, starts every game thereafter. Now, we will get into the specific personnel in just a moment, but I'm going to get rid of the names because it's actually this team shape and this system that Steve Clarke has devised which has got Scotland where they are now. And actually, by where they are now, I don't just mean qualifying for the Euros out of a tough group. I actually think Scotland's record since the last European Championships has been, like, really overlooked. In the 21 competitive games this Scotland team has played since the last European Championships, they have won 15 of them. That gives them a 71% win rate in competitive games over the last 3 years. That puts them second in this whole tournament behind Portugal. And just for context, in that same amount of time, England are only like 61, 62%. So this is a team in real form. And that is largely down to this system that Steve Clarke has devised, which makes them incredibly difficult to break down, but also maximizes their attacking threat against opponents of any stature. Okay, so there's a couple of different ways of looking at this, but it's primarily a 3-4-2-1. We have 3 centre-backs here, 2 wing-backs who push right up into the midfield, and then sort of dual number 10s behind a striker. Now, it's pretty easy to see what Scotland are going to do when they're defending. Obviously, they'll go back towards their own goal. That back 3 very easily becomes a back 5, and then they can even have a full bank of 4 right in front of them. And as both Spain and Norway found out in qualifying, when you execute this well, it's incredibly difficult to try and break down, because against an organised and deep defence, you want to get loads of movement going on to pull players out of position, but because there's just extra players here and they've got all the different areas quite nicely covered, they can move with that and still stay solid. So for example, if a striker wants to try and drop deep into the pocket here to get a bit of space from the centre-backs, because they've got 3 of them, one of them is free to step in and they can close that gap off. There's almost always an out ball to whoever the centre forward tends to be, and because of the profile of player Scotland have selected in both of these wide positions, they're able to move up the pitch quickly and support for a counter. Now obviously none of that's going to sound particularly impressive. Like, defensively, this is a system that allows Scotland to focus on the fundamentals and make it difficult for other teams. But what is really clever about it, where it starts to shine, is how they utilise it going forward. Now, as you no doubt will have picked up upon, the 2 10s in this system are very narrow. You're not really getting a lot of wide threat from either of them. And given that they tend to be John McGinn and Scott McTominay, more on them in a little bit, not really players you think of as like flying wingers. But the thing is, while the 2 wing backs are very attacking, you can't really expect all the width to come from both of those, because that will leave Scotland hugely open at the back. They'll effectively be committing 5 players forward, including 2 defenders, which other teams will play right through. They'll stretch the hell out with this back 3 and they'll get in down the flanks all the time. But what Scotland have the ability to do, and I honestly think this makes them one of the most tactically interesting teams at the entire tournament, is rotate from this system to a 4-2-3-1 in possession across both sides of the pitch, depending just on the circumstances. So in McGinn and Christie, you've got 2 players who definitely prefer to be a number 10, who are better in this central area, but can, if needs be, play out wide. McGinn finds himself out there for Villa quite occasionally. Christie will do it for Bournemouth. Like, it's not beyond them. So when Scotland move the ball up the pitch in order to give themselves enough options without overstretching themselves or leaving them really open, one of these two 10s will float out to the flank. Let's say in this example, McGinn has floated out to the right-hand side. Christie is the number 10 all of his own, and that enables Andy Robertson to then play along the left-hand side. Gives him the freedom to move into that space and attack with the ball. Now, okay, that's pretty good. You've got some good attacking options, but obviously you're really lopsided now and you're quite open down this side. But that is what's really clever about Steve Clarke's system. The profile of player he has selected to play both the wing-back roles and the wide centre-back roles. When they move up down one side of the pitch, the rest of the defence shuffles across into a regulation back four. You can really see it in sort of the combined heat maps from the qualifiers as well, because if I show you Andy Robertson's, that's not a wing back or a left back. That is somebody playing the entire length of this pitch, getting into so many different attacking areas, not worried about the space behind him. But if I show you Kieran Tierney's, you can see that is very much a dual role. He's spending a huge portion of his time in this left centre-back slot, but also being asked to play as a left back and get up occasionally as well. Like both the bits here and the bits here being deep red, you tend not to see in these heat maps, because either you do most of your work here, that'll be red and the rest will be yellow, or you do most of your work here, that'll be red and this bit will be yellow. But such is the swinging, flexible nature of this Scotland system, Tierney's doing both loads. And they're able to do this because the two wing backs are equally comfortable as either an attacking option further up the pitch or as a regulation fullback, and the two wide centre-backs are equally comfortable as either a fullback or a centre-back. And that gives you the option to move all 7 of these players effectively around one if that's what the situation requires. Robertson would drop back to here, Tierney would go in at centre-back, Ralston would then push up onto the right-hand side, McGinn would come into the middle, Christie would go out to the left, and the whole thing pivots round. And the way of looking at this system, right, is it doesn't make Scotland some free-flowing powerhouse. It doesn't give them loads of chances, right? But the movement it allows them to have, the way they slip free of their markers, it means that when the chances do arrive, they're usually very good chances. In fact, I've got an absolutely extraordinary stat for you about all of this, all right? Okay, so like take all the teams that were in European Championship qualifying, right? All like 100 and whatever of them, right? Of all of those that actually qualified, that got to the tournament, Scotland had both the fewest number of shots and the fewest number of shots on target. Now, you might think, oh, that's a terrible stat. They're the least attacking team in the whole tournament. That's really bad news, Adam. Like, why would you tell us that? And that is one way to read that data. But there is another stat that sort of forms a second part of this, right? They have the highest, the best goals per shot and goals per shot on target numbers. So, on the one hand, they are the least attacking side at the Euros, but on the other hand, they're the most lethal attacking side. This system has made Scotland not a team that beats you with quantity of chances, but one that beats you with quality of chances. But what that does also mean is that there are 2 players in this squad for whom the weight of everything falls upon their shoulders. If they don't turn up, Scotland will be going home very early. But if they do turn up, well, anything's possible. Those 2 men are John McGinn and Scott McTominay, because Scotland did not have a lot of chances in qualifying, but they, by far and away, had the bulk of them. They had 35 attempts on goal across the campaign, and that is almost, it's not quite annoyingly, but it is almost more than the entire rest of the squad put together. McTominay in particular was absolutely lethal in qualifying. He played 8 matches, had 8 attempts on target, and scored 7 goals. Again, because the quality of chance that was being created for him was very high. Now, where he plays in this system can vary from match to match. Like, sometimes he finds himself as one of the sitting players, sometimes you just stick him over there, even though he's not that very comfortable moving out into the flanks. But I'll just show you, when this works, how it works. So Scotland had a routine 3-0 win against Cyprus in September, and if you've watched Scotland international football, you will know there's no such thing normally as a routine win, so that's why that was particularly interesting. And this is the combined touch map of both McTominay and McGinn, who are playing as the 10s. And from this, you can see exactly what I was talking about. Like, there's a lot of work being done sort of in the central area in the times they were defending, but also they're playing Cyprus. They're happy to be on the front foot. They're out into the channels, into the flanks a lot, as well as being in the middle. Like, for two players playing as narrow 10s, it's very easy to describe this as they were everywhere. And you can see what I mean about how this system moves Scotland from side to side here, can't you? Because for two players who are both technically playing as a number 10, there's enormous coverage across the width of the pitch, as well as a lot of work being done in their own half. Now, up front that day was 𝗘𝗫𝗧𝗏, and let me show you all of his touches from that game. Now, bear in mind, you're playing Cyprus. Scotland won 3-0. They were really on the front foot. This is not sort of the touch map of a centre-forward you would expect in that position. There should be loads going on in the box. You should be driving the opposition back, but that's not how the centre-forward in this system works. He has to receive the ball and bring the other two into play. It can't be much fun for the centre-forward to play that way, but it is definitely effective. Like, this is 𝗘𝗫𝗧𝗏's shot map from that game. He gets one solitary shot away some point, I forget when, but here is the combined contribution of McGinn and McTominay. They managed to get 10 efforts on goal with this system. Now, of course, this has all been very positive and very good, and I will absolutely be getting a can of Iron Brew for lunch, but what are the potential pitfalls? Well, in a word, depth. Now, Scotland have lost 𝗕𝗏𝗍𝗘. He was one of the players who really felt like he made this thing. He was every bit the equal of Robertson on the other side, and they've been very fortunate in replacing him with Anthony Ralston, who has looked good in the two sort of warm-up games, but there's a huge difference between doing it there and where Hickey was doing it against Spain. And around the rest of the squad, there's like maybe one or two options that Steve Clarke has. Like, if McTominay's not going to be one of the 10s, then he sort of goes into the mix with McGregor and Gilmour, and you've kind of got a decision to make there. But other than that, one or two injuries to key parts of this Scotland squad, and the system almost completely falls away, and they'll have to do something else. And then, of course, if you do wind up changing systems, then having a centre-forward who doesn't have to be a goal threat, is just supposed to bring everybody else into it, stops being a tactical choice and becomes a major, major problem. In Lawrence Shankland and 𝗘𝗫𝗏𝗏, you've got two players who will absolutely give you everything they've got, but at this level, remains to be seen how much that's actually worth. So just to start editorialising ever so slightly here, if Scotland can keep this first choice 11 fit, I think they'll give any team in this tournament a game and should get out of that group with something to spare. And once you've done that, well, anything can happen. But this has been a long, old season, and injuries are going to be a major, major part of this tournament, I suspect. So if the hammies start to go, so might Scotland. Like, it is a shame that Hickey's going to miss out, and Patterson as well. Thought he was really important in qualifying, and I just like Lewis Ferguson because I had him on Football Manager once, so would have been good to see him there. But Scotland really do have something clever here. Something clever and wily and streetwise, and if nothing else, determined. But that is it until the Germany game, or maybe, I don't know, maybe watching it like a month after the Germany game and they've made it all the way to the final. You want to come and see how far they've come. That would be funny, wouldn't it? Either way, though, we will be covering all of the Scotland games at the European Championships. They'll be getting the exact same love and attention as England are, as we are doing in the magazine. So if you don't want to miss any of those, my pals, please do consider subscribing to us here at FourFourTwo. You won't miss a single one of them. You can get me on the social medias. They are here, where I'll be talking about them an awful lot because, as I said, it was a hell of an upbringing. In the meantime, though, the FourFourTwo socials there in the corner of the video. The latest issue of the mag, the special Euros one. How pretty is that? Get a good look. That's in sale from all the good retailers and all the bad ones also as well. And yeah, let us know in the comments, Scotland fans, how are you feeling? Are you confident? Are you apprehensive? I'd like to take the temperature, so feelings, thoughts, all welcome below. Until next time, though, as I say, I have been Adam Clery. This has been FourFourTwo, and if I sound unwell, that is because I genuinely do have a fever to go along with my Euros fever. But I'll live. Goodbye.